ACE, Essentials of Exercise Science for Fitness Professionals, Chapter 1, Page 8, the Digestive System. Remember, as you are listening or reading through the content, to imagine how it will apply to you as a personal trainer and how it is to be understood within the context of exercise. Digestive system. Each cell in the body requires a constant source of energy to perform its specific function. People attain energy from ingested food that has been mechanically or chemically processed by the body so that it can ultimately pass through the wall of the gastrointestinal (GI) tract and enter the bloodstream. The vascular system carries food molecules through the hepatic portal vein to the liver before distributing them throughout the body. After entering the cells, the digested food molecules may be reassembled into proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, or may be used in the production of energy to support body activity. The digestive system carries out 6 basic processes: ingestion of food into the mouth, movement of food along the digestive tract, mechanical preparation of food for digestion, chemical digestion of food, absorption of digested food into the circulatory and lymphatic systems, and elimination of indigestible substances and waste products from the body by defecation. At its most basic structural level, the digestive system consists of a tube called the GI tract that extends from the mouth to the anus. When food is in the GI tract, it is considered to be outside of the body. Oh, that's interesting. To enter the body, the ingested food must cross the cells that line the wall of the digestive tract. Many substances pass through the GI tract without being absorbed. Although the GI tract is one continuous tube, it is divided into several separate regions which performs specialized functions of the digestive process. These regions include the mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and large intestine, figure 1-5. Food enters the body through the mouth, where the mechanical process of chewing breaks large pieces of food into smaller ones. Saliva blends with these pieces to ease swallowing and dissolves some of the food particles, thereby allowing the food to be tasted by the taste buds on the tongue. Furthermore, secretions from the salivary glands contain an enzyme that initiates carbohydrate digestion. Food that is swallowed passes through the mouth to the pharynx, which serves as a common passageway for both the respiratory and digestive systems. The act of swallowing causes food to slide across the epiglottis, bypassing the entrance to the lungs. This is important because the epiglottis closes off the trachea to prevent choking when swallowing. After a mouthful of food has been swallowed, it is called a bolus. Next, the bolus slides down the esophagus, a muscular tube that connects the pharynx with the stomach. Located behind the trachea, the esophagus passes through the mediastinum of the thorax. Remember, the mediastinum is the space between the lungs. And continues onto the diaphragm, where it ultimately empties into the stomach. Waves of contractions, called peristalses, or singular peristalses, move the food through the esophagus, where it enters the stomach through the cardiac sphincter, which sits at the upper portion of the stomach. The stomach prepares ingested food by chemical and mechanical means for passage into the small intestine. The chemical action consists of specialized stomach cells that produce secretions to break down food particles. These secretions also protect the stomach cells from being broken down. The mechanical action occurs when the stomach grinds the food into a suspension of particles to create a thick liquid mixture known as chyme. The stomach stores chyme until it can be emptied into the small intestine at a rate appropriate for optimal digestion and absorption. Chyme leaves the stomach and enters the small intestine through the pyloric sphincter. The small intestine is the primary site for digestion and absorption of food, including the energy-providing nutrients, protein, carbohydrate, and fat, vitamins, minerals, and water. Therefore, it is important for the stomach to store food and pass it into the small intestine at a rate that does not exceed the small intestine's capacity. In general, it takes hours to digest and absorb a meal that took only minutes to consume. Measuring a length of approximately 21 feet or 6.4 meters, the small intestine is divided into 3 segments. The duodenum is the first 8 inches or 20.3 centimeters. The jejunum is 8 feet or 2.4 meters, and the ileum is 12 feet or 3.7 meters. As it passes through the duodenum, chyme is exposed to bile from the liver and gallbladder, which aids in the digestion of fat, and pancreatic enzymes, which aid in the digestion of protein, carbohydrate, and fat. In the small intestine, a process similar to peristalsis, called segmentation, not only pushes the chyme, but also periodically squeezes it momentarily, thereby forcing the intestinal contents backward a few inches and allowing the digestive juices and absorbing cells to make better contact with the nutrients. Most absorption of food molecules occurs in the duodenum and the jejunum through the surfaces of microscopic hair-like projections called villi and microvilli. Each projection has its own capillary network and lymph vessel, so as food molecules move across them, the nutrients can immediately pass through the bloodstream and body fluid. By the time chyme reaches the large intestine, sometimes called the colon, digestion and absorption are mostly complete. The large intestine, which is approximately 5 feet or 1.5 meters long, is called large because its diameter is greater than that of the small intestine. The final absorption of water and salt occurs in the large intestine, leaving semi-solid waste that is passed out of the body through the anus. Fiber and other indigestible substances in the diet provide bulk against which the muscles of the colon can work to expel waste. Transit time of a meal through the digestive system from the mouth to the colon can take several hours and depends on the nutrient composition of the meal. The kidney is another organ related to digestion, but it is actually part of its own distinct system, the urinary system. The kidneys are located on each side of the vertebral column in the posterior or rear abdominal cavity. They are the body's main excretory organs and are critically important for maintaining the body's internal environment within a range that is optimal for survival of cells. The kidneys carry out their functions by eliminating from the body a variety of metabolic products such as urea, uric acid, and creatine, and by excreting or conserving water and electrolytes. As blood flows through the kidneys, some of the plasma is filtered out. As the filtrate flows along, water, electrolytes glucose, amino acids, and other important substances are reabsorbed and returned to the blood. Hormones regulate the reabsorption and secretion processes within the kidneys and allow them to exert a high degree of control over which materials get excreted or reabsorbed. When the reabsorption and secretion processes are completed, the remaining fluid in the kidneys is transported to the bladder and excreted as urine. If you flip back to page 9, I'm going to read this little excerpt on the lymphatic system real quick, because the lymphatic system is an important part of the digestive system, apparently. Okay, the lymphatic system is composed of an extensive network of capillaries collecting vessels, lymph nodes, and lymphoid organs, and serves to return excess fluid from between the cells. The interstitial fluid back to the bloodstream. Sorry. Alright, let me restart that. The lymphatic system is composed of an extensive network of capillaries collecting vessels, lymph nodes, and lymphoid organs, and serves to return excess fluid from between the cells or interstitial fluid back to the bloodstream, thereby preventing swelling of the intercellular spaces, known as edema. Lymph fluid is very similar to blood, except that it contains no red blood cells or platelets, as these components cannot escape through the blood vessel walls. Once lymph enters the blood through specialized vessels called lymphatic capillaries, it circulates through the arteries, blood capillaries, and veins. There are 4 important functions of the lymphatic system: destruction of bacteria and other foreign substances that are present in lymph nodes, specific immune responses that aid in manufacturing antibodies to destroy bacteria and foreign substances, the return of interstitial fluid to the bloodstream, and prevention of excessive accumulation of tissue fluid and filtered proteins by drainage into highly permeable lymphatic capillaries in the connective tissues. The skeletal system. The human skeleton is an active living tissue that performs several important functions. These functions are support, movement, protection, storage, and formation of blood cells, called hemopoiesis. Hemopoiesis, not sure. But that hemopoiesis is formation of blood cells. The body has a total of 206 bones, most of which are paired, right and left. Right and left femurs, right and left tibias, figure 1-6. The structural functions of bone include giving support to the soft tissues of the body and providing attachment sites for most muscles, which play an important role in movement. Many of the body's muscles attach to bone, and when the muscles contract, the bones move at their articulations or their joints. The skeleton also provides protection for many of the body's organs. For example, the skull encases the brain, the vertebrae form a canal around the spinal cord, the rib cage protects the heart and lungs, and the bony pelvis guards the urinary bladder and internal reproductive organs. The skeleton is also a storehouse for 2 essential minerals, calcium and phosphorus, that are essential for the proper functioning of other body systems. In addition, fat, sodium, potassium, and other minerals are stored in the bone. Recall that bones are not static structures. They are constantly breaking down to release minerals and other substances into the blood, while simultaneously rebuilding to provide the body with flexible yet sturdy structural support. After birth, the skeleton is a production site for blood cells found within the circulatory system, e.g. red blood cells, certain white blood cells, platelets. The various shapes of bones determine how they are classified, i.e. long, short, flat, and irregular. Long bones are so named because they are longer than they are wide. which means they have a long axis. Most of the bones of the limbs are classified as long, e.g. humerus, radius, ulna, femur, fibula, phalanges. Bones that are approximately the same length and width are called short bones, are carpals and tarsals. Flat bones are thin and typically curved. They include some of the bones of the skull, the ribs, and the sternum. Bones that do not fit into the previous categories are classified as irregular bones because of their diverse shapes, e.g. hip bones, vertebrae, and certain skull bones. Bones are composed of a dense outer layer called compact or cortical bone and a honeycomb-like inner structure called spongy or trabecular bone. The cortical shell makes up roughly 75% of the skeleton, whereas the trabecular network makes up the remaining 25%. Cortical bone is essential because it provides strength. Tendon attachment. Cortical bone is essential because it provides strength, tendon attachment sites for muscles, and organ protection without excessive weight. Trabecular bone serves two vital purposes. It provides a large surface area for mineral exchange and helps to maintain skeletal strength and integrity. It is particularly abundant in the vertebrae and at the ends of long bones, sites that are under continuous stress from motion and weight bearing. Areas containing a large percentage of trabecular tissue are most likely to fracture when a bone is weakened due to a disease such as osteoporosis. A closer look at a typical long bone reveals its many structures. So there are two basic structures of bones, the cortical bone and the trabecular bone, but long bones, and probably short bones too, and probably irregular bones, and probably flat bones, they all have an even more broken down structure. Figure 1 Text 7 shows the long bone structures. Okay, so we have the shaft called the diaphysis. It's located between the two ends, which are named the proximal and distal epiphysis, or singular epiphyses. The hollow space inside the diaphysis is called the medullary cavity, which is used as a storage site for fat and is sometimes called the yellow bone marrow cavity. It is lined by a thin connective tissue layer called the endosteum. I'm trying to find the endosteum. So the yellow marrow, I see the middle. I'm looking at the cross. I think that's called a cross section. It looks like an egg on the camera. Okay. Anyway, let's keep going. Alright. I'm just going to read it. You can look at the picture as I read. Alright. The diaphysis, which is the shaft of a long bone. The diaphysis and outer layers of the epiphysis are made of cortical bone, whereas trabecular bone is concentrated in the central regions of the epiphysis. Certain long bones contain red marrow, which is essential in the manufacture and maturation of red blood cells, most white blood cells, and platelets. In the trabecular tissue of their epiphyses. Okay, I'm going to read that again because I didn't pronounce it right, or emphasize it correctly. Certain long bones contain red marrow, which is essential in the manufacture and maturation of red blood cells, most white blood cells, and platelets in the trabecular tissue of their epiphyses. An epiphyseal cartilage, also called a growth plate, separates the diaphysis and epiphysis in children and young adults, providing a means for the bone to increase in length. In adults, when skeletal growth has been completed, the epiphyseal cartilage is replaced by bone, and the area is called the epiphyseal line. A dense connective tissue layer called the periosteum covers the outer surface of the bone and is well supplied with blood vessels and nerves, some of which enter the bone. Throughout life, the human skeleton is being continuously broken down while simultaneously being restored. In fact, most of the adult skeleton is replaced approximately every 10 years. In adults, a process called remodeling is responsible for continual reshaping and rebuilding the skeleton in response to internal and external signs from specialized bone cells that either build bone, osteoblasts, or break it down, osteoclasts. So bone cells that build bone are called osteoblasts, and bone cells that break bone down are called osteoclasts. Remodeling is vital for bone health for several reasons. First, the remodeling process repairs damage to the skeleton that can result from repeated stress. It also prevents the accumulation of too much old bone, which can lose its resilience and become brittle. Furthermore, remodeling plays an important role in removing calcium and phosphorus from the bones when these minerals are deficient in the diet, or when an increased need exists due to pregnancy or lactation. Although the size and shape of the skeleton is genetically determined, it can be greatly affected by loading or impact from physical activity. Ultimately, a bone's size and shape fits best with its function. In other words, form follows function. That's Wolff's law. Form follows function. Wolff's law indicates that changes in bone structure coincide with changes in bone function. That is, when the skeleton is subjected to stressful forces such as those that occur with exercise, it responds by laying down more bone tissue, thereby increasing its density. Conversely, when individuals experience prolonged periods of bed rest due to illness or injury, their bones lose mineral and become less dense. Maintaining adequate bone density is an important issue for all adults. Fitness professionals can play a crucial role in helping people preserve bone tissue by educating them about the importance of exercise and proper nutrition. I got really excited about that. The one part of the human structure, I guess, that cannot be, and this is a side note for me, this is kind of what I kind of put together in relation to how I would apply this as a personal trainer, is that, I can't remember what chapter it is, but the one thing you cannot change with exercise is structure. However, with this idea of remodeling, there are kind of two things I got from this. One is it reemphasizes the importance of needing to appropriately progress your clients, because if you have a client like myself who has been inactive for about a year and has put on a lot of weight, to get that client trying to participate in activity that they had been participating in before without appropriately, increasing the intensity, time, and type, I think is what it is. you could really, really put them at risk because their bones, even their bone structure has to adapt to the new activity. It may not be new, they may have had a lot of history with exercise like I have. However, their bone has still broken down over that time of rest or recovery or whatever. So that just really reemphasizes, like, even people's bones, a structure that cannot be changed by exercise, in the sense of you can't make a short bone longer or vice versa. Very, very important in progression, and when you're taking your history of your client and things like that, to really, really understand where they were, or where they're coming from, and where they are at now. You got to give their bone cells, their osteoblasts, time to build their bones back up, because the osteoclast had broken it down. And then the other thing that really stuck out to me is that, even though, I guess you could say on the negative side of the fact that fitness professionals can't help the client change their bone structure, they can help change it on a cellular level to make it strong. And I'm not a doctor or anything, but there's something called cell turnover, and it has to do with the environment that you create in the body through nutrition and exercise. And it's just very motivating that, yes, you could have a client that is all kinds of effed up, but you can help them at the structural level. You can help them at the bone level. You can help their bones get strong. It's very exciting to me. Anywho, we have articulations. So articulations really, really has to be paid attention to, and planes of motion and things like that. So I think I'm going to stop here, and I got to get ready for work. So, yeah. See ya.